Modus Hobin zaman amku Pamaulik kita nomu Si Ricky Jan Richard Bonina Judani Gualomu Ukam sana usama garin personia Asuita nota Guam Gani pagok dasia Hey, San Nuevo Nani Hey, San Nuevo Nani Hey, San Nuevo Nani
Buenas and half a day, everybody. Welcome to the Fanohge Coalition's teach-in. I'm just going to give a brief introduction. My name is Josephine Ong. I am a PhD candidate in youth and gender studies and also Filipinos for Guahan's representative to the Fanohge Coalition. Just to start, I'm going to give a quick briefer on our motivations for this teach-in and forum and what the Fanohge Coalition is about. So the Fanohge Coalition is a collective of groups and individuals united in support for the rights of Chamorro people to exercise self-determination and the protection of Chamorro's unique connection to the island of Guam. Recent news about increased militarization of Guam has made decolonization an even more important political issue and topic. As a collective dedicated to Chamorro self-determination, the Fanohge Coalition believes that it is important for senatorial candidates to be aware of the different ways our various organizations advocate for Guam's decolonization and work across different social justice issues affecting various communities, especially those who are most marginalized in Guam. Today, the coalition will host a teach-in for senatorial candidates to learn about the work of the Commission on Decolonization, the Eco-Warriors, Prutehi Litekyan, Micronesian Climate Change Alliance, Famalao'an Rights, Save Southern Guam, and the Young Men's League of Guam. So thank you. And without further ado, we'll move on to our first organization, which I think is the Commission on Decolonization. Thank you.
Fanohge, thank you. May I have access to the screen sharing?
And again, you have it.
Okay. Is this working right? Everybody good? Okay. Fanohge, my name is Melvin Pat-Borja. I am the Executive Director of the Commission on Decolonization. Thank you to the Fanohge Coalition for hosting this event, and I'm happy to be here to share some of the work of the Commission and what we're really built to do and what it means to our community. Thank you to the prospective political candidates for attending and taking time to learn about these issues that we really view as a critical component of what we need to do moving forward. So the Commission on Decolonization was built to address our pending political status issues. As you know, Guam is an unincorporated U.S. territory, which means that we are a non-self-governing territory. There are only 17 non-self-governing territories left in the world, and of those 17, 5 of them are administered or owned by the United States. Guam's quest for self-governance is definitely an old issue. It's, some argue that we've been dealing with this issue since the Spanish colonial period, but we have been U.S. territory for over a century, an unincorporated U.S. territory for over a century. The Commission on Decolonization was established by the 24th Guam Legislature in 1977. Its predecessor was the Commission on Self-Determination. Some of you may remember the work of the Commission on Self-Determination. They were really the active agent during the Guam's push for Commonwealth. Now, I think it's definitely important to note that the Guam Commonwealth Draft Act really was likely the furthest that we've taken this issue, in the sense that, we got to a point where our people had voted in a plebiscite to adopt the Guam Commonwealth Draft Act. And that is significant because at that time, it made it all the way to Congress. Governor Joseph Atta at the time presented it to Congress, but it never made it out of committee. And so it never even got a chance to, have its day on the floor and to be voted on. The major salient issues really were the articles on immigration and the article on mutual consent in regard to military activities on Guam. So the people of Guam wanted to control their immigration, and they wanted to have a relationship with the military that was built on consent versus consultation, which is what we have now. As an unincorporated territory, we are notified about activities that the military is engaging in. And so, there's really very little agency for our people and our government in regards to military activity. We hear the word mitigation a lot, and mitigation really signals that something bad has happened and we're trying to figure out a way to make it right, rather than, taking the other approach where we say, okay, we recognize that this action or this proposed activity, can be damaging to our environment or to our, health and safety well-being. And so we don't want to do it. But Guam does not negotiate with the federal government in that way, nor do we negotiate with other sovereign nations in that way. The military buildup itself is a great example of the inequity of our relationship with the United States as an unincorporated territory. The buildup basically was decided on and put into motion as a negotiation between two sovereign governments. And so the United States federal government and the Japanese government came to an agreement that they wanted to remove Futenma Air Base and put it here in Guam to relocate all of these Marines, that were housed in this base, and Guam was not involved in that negotiation. Guam was spoken for in that negotiation. That's very similar to any conversations around Guam on an international level are usually we are represented for by the United States federal government because they consider us a possession rather than an equal member in the United States system of representative democracy. So what is self-determination and what is decolonization? Oftentimes these two are kind of thrown around pretty loosely and kind of asserted in a synonymous way, but they are definitely very different, though they are absolutely connected. So self-determination really refers to the right of a people to decide for themselves freely what they want their political status to be. And it really is particular around, making a decision about what we want a permanent political status to be and what we want it to look like. Now, decolonization is a much bigger issue in the sense that decolonization really is about challenging some of these colonial constructs and imagining and envisioning and then enacting what we want our lives to be. Now, decolonization is not is a process that is unending. It's something that we constantly have to work at in order to, to create a more equitable society. And so we see the remnants of, our colonial past in a lot of places on Guam. For example, the place names effort, to change the village names back to their original names, their original Chamorro indigenous identities. Our people did not name villages randomly. We applied what we thought was appropriate based on what that area meant to us, what that part of the island, how it serviced us or how it provided for us. And so there's this very specific identity, but we know these as other names now, right? The names have changed, and so there's this conflict now in our community. Well, why are we gonna change the name when we already have it, we already have a name for it and it's expensive to do it, or this is a waste of time and a waste of effort. But, the perspective that, that our way of life and our, the way that we see the world is irrelevant, really is a colonial construct, right? The minimizing of our cultural values and beliefs is clearly problematic. And so, the process of decolonization really is much bigger than just voting for a political status. Self-determination is particular to that end. Now, we also have to ask the question of who holds the right to self-determination. Now, self-determination is an inalienable human right. It's, something that is only done once. You don't self-determine twice. Sometimes people self-determine on a personal level. We say that people can self-determine with their feet. And that's when you move, right? So for example, if you are a citizen of Guam, you're a US citizen, but you are, a citizen of the territory, you have, a very inequitable relationship, right? You don't have access to this political system in the same way that citizens in the continental United States do. But if you move, to California, you're registered to vote, and now you have, full access to the US political system. Now you're a full-fledged American citizen. But what that then does is that it also at least in the law that we have now, you now are ineligible to vote in a Chamorro Self-Determination plebiscite. And so, this is not everybody has access to those opportunities. Not every one of us can just up and leave, and not all of us want to do that. This is our home. This is our ancestral home. And so, we have very deep ties to this island and what it means to be, a native inhabitant of this place. And so the right to decolonize, the right to self-determine is the right of the oppressed, the right of the people who have had that right taken from them. And so, for people like in the Davis versus Guam case, which we cite here, just a little background, Arnold Dave Davis is a retired Air Force member who moved to Guam and was denied registration for a self-determination plebiscite. And he sued the government of Guam and said that, Gov Guam was violating his constitutional right by discriminating against him and denying him access to a plebiscite. Now, our law at the time said that, we have the right of self-determination is the right of the colonized, right? And that you had to be a resident of a registered voter of Guam and a native inhabitant. And we define native inhabitant as anyone who became a US citizen by virtue of the Organic Act in 1950. Now, the court eventually ruled that this was a violation of constitutional rights because we were restricting access based on race. But our legal representative, Attorney Julian Uggan, eloquently argued that, our definition of native inhabitant really is a political definition. It is a time-based definition, and it's not, it's not a use of ancestry as a proxy for race, which is what was being asserted against us. And so even in that definition, those who were made US citizens by virtue of the Organic Act in 1950, that includes other groups that are not Chamorro. For example, anybody who was here, as part of the Camp Rojas effort was also made a US citizen just because they lived here at that time. And so, we have a lot of folks who are ethnically Filipino, but, are defined as native inhabitants because they became US citizens not of their choice, right? The 1950 Organic Act was an act of Congress. It was not an act of self-determination. And so, the people of Guam, the native inhabitants of Guam have never been given this right. Now, the question then becomes, how can others support the movement for self-determination? How do we assert then that this is an inclusive movement and not an exclusive one? And yes, what we are asking for is, an opportunity to right a historical wrong. Allow the people who have had this right stripped from them the opportunity to exercise their desires, just like free people around the world have done, and let us take our place among sovereign nations. Now, that said, once the people of Guam, the native inhabitants of Guam, the colonized people of Guam exercise their desires and express those desires, then that's, in my opinion, that's where the real work begins. And that's where every citizen of Guam is going to be asked to participate in a process to realize this political status and what it means for our government. And so, based on the international law, the only three legitimate political status options for us would be either incorporation, which is commonly referred to as statehood, free association, which is what our neighbors around the region of Micronesia have, or independence, which would mean that we would be, an independent country, our own country. Now, whichever status we choose, there would have to be a process in which we build this status and we build this into our government. So if we're no longer an unincorporated territory and now we're, a freely associated nation or an independent nation, what then does our constitution look like, right? We would have to craft a constitution. Some people have argued that we should be crafting a constitution now because Congress has already authorized that action. They've basically given us permission to write our own constitution, which we agree is very important. But there's a lot of us who believe that writing a constitution ahead of political status resolution is like putting the carabao before the cart. How do we write the parameters of what our basic understandings and agreements will be? What will our rights be? What would a constitution look like if we don't know what our political status is? We can't write a constitution now as an unincorporated territory when we clearly don't have the same, access to the political system that controls us. So we need to be able to establish and resolve what our final political status would be before we draft the Constitution. And though the decision of what that status will be should be reserved as a right of the people who've had that stripped away from them, we would have to draft the Constitution together. It would be a very inclusive process. All of us would have to come together to realize this vision for our future. And so, the self-determination process is a lengthy one. It's a very important process. And that's really why the Commission on Decolonization exists, is that we are built to educate our community about this issue, about the process, and prepare them for a political status plebiscite and all the steps that will come after that decision is made. The Commission on Decolonization also includes 3 political status task forces for each status. And so we have a task force for statehood, a task force for free association with the United States, and a task force for independence. Each task force is populated by a group of volunteers, and they receive local funding to help support their educational needs. And so, it's basically a way for us to empower these groups of volunteers so that they have the resources and materials to get out there and advocate for their desired political status. So the Commission on Decolonization will not come out and take a stance on political status and say, this is a status that is best for Guam. What we will tell you is that any one of these 3 political statuses are better than what we currently have. Any of them give us a higher level of autonomy, a higher level of sovereignty, a higher level of participation and equity than the current unincorporated territory status has. These are some of our academic and community outreach efforts. Gihamotna is a self-governance study. It's the first of its kind. It's meant to be a comprehensive analysis of our current political status and where specifically are we more or less self-governing. And then it turns around and assesses the political status models. And so it'll take different aspects of our government, say, for example, immigration. It'll analyze how we deal with immigration now as an unincorporated territory. And then it'll use a model of another jurisdiction that has a different political status, but is similar to Guam, maybe similar geographically or similar in population. And so it'll take, for example, Palau. As a freely associated nation, this is how Palau's immigration policy works. This is what Guam's policy could look like if we were to adopt this model. It'll do another analysis of a state, let's say Hawaii, the state of Hawaii handles their immigration policy in this way. And then for an independent nation, maybe, a jurisdiction like Singapore, for example, which is geographically similar to Guam. They definitely have a larger population, but we would use pieces of their system as models and predictors. Not prediction is not really the right word. Forecast model probably more appropriate, but it's built so that the people of Guam can, understand how this is going to work and make an informed decision when we get to a political status vote. The educational insert was a revisiting of a previous effort by the Commission on Self-Determination, and it basically is meant to be an introduction. This was published in the PDN. We also have it available online. The Gihamotna study is also available online. I forgot to mention, you can also pick up a copy at the Guam Museum. If you just go to the front desk, copies are available and they're free of charge. All of this is on our website, decall.guam.gov. Down here at the bottom right corner is a QR code that'll take you to our website. We also have 2 educational documentary films. The first, Decolonization 101, is an introduction to the decolonization issue for Guam. And the second film is an introduction to the Gihamotna study that features 3 of the lead scholars who were involved in this effort. We also have some other video resources that are available on our website. And then there's also some introductory language to how our political status impacts different parts of our government and our way of life here on Guam. These are some photos of some of the outreach that we've done. We've done some youth outreach with high schools. We did some film screenings for our documentaries. We have this in the bottom right corner is our first cohort of Guam history teachers. We're currently working with the Department of Education to have our curriculum adopted so that it can be used and standardized by Guam history teachers. Our teachers have also received copies of the study, and we're actually doing a youth conference for high schoolers next week at the Guam Museum. This is some of our social media handles that you can follow us at: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, our website, and then that's our email at the bottom. Feel free to email us if you have any specific questions. I believe I'm just out of time. I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush through this as much as possible so I can cram in as much information as I can. But if there are any questions, I'll be happy to field them now. Thank you.
Hafide, Sidus Masi Melvin for that overview. And I wanted to, and so for those candidates that are here attending this, there will be a time for discussion for also you to introduce yourselves at the end after the presentations. But I did want to acknowledge all of the candidates that are here that have joined us for this teach-in. And so I do want to thank Senator Sabina Perez, Senator Telo Taitague, Senator James Moylan, former Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano, Fred Bordallo Jr., Vince Borja, Bistra Mendiola, and Angela Santos. And I think I got everybody who's currently in the Zoom room. And so Sidus Masi Tatlo for attending this teach-in today. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues that we're talking about. And so next, in terms of presentations, I wanted to welcome Monica Flores from Prutehi Litekyan. Por favor, Monica.
Sidus Masi, Menaga Propoini, Toto Hamzu, and my name is Nick Flores. I'm a member of Prutehi Litekyan Savor-Tidian, and we've been around as a community group for about 5 years now, but really only as a nonprofit for the last year. And we're engaged in a lot of different work. And today we've been asked to focus on, concerns about the military buildup for candidates to consider. And you know, there's so many impacts from regarding the buildup. You know, there's social impacts, environmental impacts, cultural impacts, economic impacts, and we're really going to focus specifically on a few impacts around the firing range complex, as well as the construction of the new marine base and other operations taking place, other kinds of work that we're engaged in. And so let's see, I'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just 1 second, so sorry. So, you know, for the candidates, we just thought we could share, I could share a few, you know, some facts about the construction that's happening for the live fire, you know, some of the construction actually that's happening all around. And so first I thought we should start talking about acreage, you know, the clearing of about 1,219 acres of limestone forest habitat. And these include 187 acres for the for Northwest Field, or the live fire training range complex. Actually, 4 of the 5 ranges are complete. The 5th range, we've been saying for a long time, was put on pause because of the last remaining adult Ceranthus nelsoni, which is an endangered species, or the Hudson Lago tree, the mother tree. However, we recently visited this site and saw that it has been completely cleared. It was quite devastating to watch. We have a full video on our Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook channels that we really encourage all the candidates to watch, which has a graphic depiction of the clearing and the desecration really of this area. Also, 212 acres of limestone forest habitat is cleared for the hand grenade range, the urban training range area, and other areas at Andy South. This is also like the historic village of Mogfog. So, sorry, the live fire training range complex is like in an area known as Tailalu, right? Or also Punta Putgun is near there. It's right above the Texan or Retidian. And then this area, the other area, the urban training area, is in the area of Mogfog. So these are all very important settlement sites that are very rich with burials of our ancestors. You know, and all of this is taking place over our Northern Lens aquifer, which provides 85 to 90% of the island's fresh drinking water. And so there's a lot of concern for contamination to our aquifer. And I'll get more into that in a few minutes. 12 acres of limestone forest habitat are cleared for water wells and water systems. And it's important to mention that in addition to the millions of water already extracted every single day by the military from our Northern Lens aquifer, the marine base will require an additional exploitation of 1 million gallons of water a day, about 365 million gallons of water a year, in addition to the hundreds of millions that they already take, right? And 683 acres of limestone forest is used to build the marine base called Camp Laz. And I'm gonna actually share some Google Earth images so you can see just sort of the scarring of the earth that's happening with this construction. This is the site of the marine cantonment. There are several areas here: Mogwak, Sabina, and Fadang, Fenugi, that are all impacted. Several ancient village sites here. We've had a few ceremonies for the ancestral burials that were desecrated at this site. A lot of endangered trees have been removed, including trees that are important for cultural practices, ephit, breadfruit, and 2 other endangered species that are endemic to Guam. And also there's, you know, concerns for removal of some traditional medicinal plants that are also endangered, which are important habitat plants for the 8-spot butterfly and other endangered species. So this is just one image to show you the clearing. Another image I thought to show you was, this is the Google Earth image right now of the live fire training range complex. As you can see, it's quite a drastic clearing. And so when we visited the site of the machine gun range, which was the final of the 5 ranges to be cleared at the live fire training range complex, military officials told us so far that they've actually removed 100 acres of limestone forest for that area. And so just to give you a little bit of background about here actually, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Here we go. So at the firing range, they will be also using about close to 7 million ammunitions a year. So a lot of this brings great risk for contamination to our aquifer. So not only do you have the clearing of limestone forest, which affects the recharge of the aquifer, we're looking at several contaminants, including lead, nitroglycerin, TNT, RDX, as well as PFOS and PFAS going to be released right over our aquifer. A lot of these are forever chemicals that don't break down in the natural environment. And there's nothing in the environmental impact statement that really discusses, how these ranges, how the chemicals will impact the air, fishing, because a lot of this stuff, whatever happens on the land, of course, impacts our fishing resources. And a lot of these toxins will also be found in fish tissues. So our fishing community is going to be impacted substantially, as well as our folks. This is an image of the 4 ranges over Litekyan or Retidian, right? And as you can see, we're all part of the surface these are all part of the surface danger zone. These show different noise levels. And the surface danger zone extends 2.8 miles out past the reef in this area, making fishing really difficult. It's going to cut a very important fishing site. It's going to be more expensive and more dangerous because the further out you go, the more dangerous it is. And so some of the impacts, of course, are noise impacts, access restrictions, because the Litekyan will be closed 3/4 out of the year to the public, stray bullets, private property impacts, land claims impacts, because these are all family lands that need to be returned to the original landowners, land back. There are burials, both ancestral and family burials at this site, and of course, rare species. Want to thank Kelly Marsh-Taitano, former Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano, for actually creating this slide. Some of these slides, or graphics rather, when we first started about 5 years ago. And so these are also some of the endangered species that are being impacted. There are about 10 newly listed species that are being impacted. We also have, I'll just share this list real quick. These are some of the species that are being impacted. This is where, again, these are the surface danger zones. And as you can see, these are some different habitats that are impacted, including turtles, seaweeds, algae, corals. This map actually shows some bat habitat, butterfly habitat, and various plants and trees that are impacted. Ultimately, the buildup poses a lot of great risk, and Guam has this long legacy of environmental racism that we have to look at the full picture, right? And what's coming up next, of course, is that the Air Force has applied to renew their permit for open burn, open detonation right by Taitague Beach. It's just a few feet away from the shore. Also very close to our aquifer, and also impacting migratory birds, as well as fish in that area. And so Prutehi Litekyan's actually engaged in a lawsuit right now with Anderson Air Force Base for violations of the National Environmental Policy Act, as well as RCRA, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. And so, we just want to ask all of the candidates to please follow us on all of our social media to learn more. We've got a lot of information on our Instagram and our Facebook, and a few other groups are doing a lot of some of the same work. I just wanted to also give a shout out to Protect Guam Water, who's not on this panel today. Please also check out their social media for other information about the military buildup. And just thank you all for your time. I'll go ahead and pass it because I've reached my 5 minutes. Sanamasi, everybody.
Sidus Masi to Maneka and Prutehi Litekyan for your presentation. And so I want to ask now Paige Uggan from Eco Warriors.
Hafide.
Ready to go? Hafide? All right. Sidus Masi, you have 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Hafide, Guahusi Page again. I am a student of Guam Community College and the president of GCC Eco Warriors. So a little bit about our organization. We are a student and community organization that was founded back in 2011. Our motto is learn, lead, protect. And because we learn about our local and global effects of climate change and the effects of pollution and development on our aquifer and land and over-harvesting our reefs, that is crucial information, just knowing as the future generation, especially just because these are our natural resources. And if we overtake and produce so much of our exhaust of emissions, I see it as we're only killing ourselves, because we're killing the trees, as they said, we're over harvesting our reefs, we're killing our fish, we're taking down our limestones, which affect our hanam, our drinking water. We contain 60% of water in our bodies. So how are we gonna function and live and survive if we don't have our number one source? We also strive to lead by example at community outreach events and encourage and strengthen stewardship ourselves and others to protect and defend our natural resources. We are also living in the age of technological and global consumption, what I would like to add. But what is there going to be consumed if everything is gone? If we take all our natural resources, what will be left on the land, especially? Will we just eat money? You know, if you really think about it, are we just going to eat money? What are we going to have to eat? What are we going to have to drink? So to count our accomplishments of our organization, we have teamed up with Marine Mania from George Washington Senior High School in preventing the construction of the Fujita culvert that would have drained dirty, toxic stormwater into Tumon Bay that would have killed many coral colonies and ruined one of our best tourist attractions. But as you can see, if you have been to Tumon Bay, it is still endangered since it isn't a marine preserve. Our filter feeders, known as our balati, is really nowhere to be found. And I believe if we have more park rangers there, that would also increase the protection of our corals and our marine life, and also produce a increase of job revenues. We have also protested on the road and in the legislature with SAV Southern Guam to prevent the construction of two high-rise buildings at Pago Bay that had the potential to encourage similar irresponsible development in the southern tip of Guam. And also to add on the southern tip of Guam, that's where we need to be adding more trees, especially since everything that gets washed up from off-roading, from just trash, sewage, that goes into our oceans, and that suffocates the seaweed, that suffocates the coral on shore. And we have also started the first climate change march on Guam in 2015 and held annual marches for at least 4 years before the pandemic. It's great to see a couple of our candidates this evening who marched with us, Senator Sabina Perez and former Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano. Just 2 weeks ago, we participated in the Guam International Coastal Cleanup, and prior to the pandemic since 2011. We sponsored cleanups at some of the most challenging dump sites on Guam, including Marble Cave, Eagles Field, and Turtle Cove. But to point out why an environmental group would participate in an teach-in about decolonization and self-determination, the Eco Warriors officially joined the Fanohge Coalition in 2019, and our members marched in the hugely memorable Fanohge March for Self-Determination on September 2nd. We joined because we recognize that true protection of our land, water, forests, and unique native and endemic species begin with having real control over our resources. And real control is not possible with the political status quo. Without the power of sovereignty, whether that sovereign arises from statehood, free association, or independence, it is likely we're going to live in houses that we call home, but we can't do anything to protect it from destruction. I personally believe we should lean more towards independence, as it's the best options. We will still have ties. You can look at England, they still have ties with Australia,
And also to add, I went to college out in the States, and I didn't have the same rights as other Native Americans, as Native Hawaiians and Native Indians. They can go to college for free, other than young individuals who are pursuing their education out in the States. Tuition is more expensive. You have to pull out grants. And it also saddens me. And most unfortunate example of our inability to protect our resources is the destruction of the pristine limestone forest to construct the live fire training range on the cliff above Litekyan. Nowhere else in the United States would this be allowed to happen. What used to be there can never be recovered, and no amount of mitigation will ever replace what we have lost. And according to the Department of Energy data, Crawford found that the US military is a major polluter. Since the beginning of the global war on terror in 2001, the military has produced more than 1.2 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases. And they published that in January 18, 2022, if you want to check that out. And also, I would like to add, sorry, I need to find it. Going back on what Maneka said, how also with the pollution of the firing range going into our ocean, everything's just going to go back into our ocean. And that is going to also cause a drastic effect on our local businesses. As she said, what is their main income going to be if their outlet of business as our fish is going to be cut off? So thus, as a member of the Fanohge Coalition, the eco-warriors support efforts to seek self-determination for Guam and break down the decolonized mindset that persists in our community. And the reason why I joined Fanohge Coalition was due to the change that they have already been fighting for and enacting. I finally woke up out of this trance that I was in, realizing that this is something I need to fight for, and this is real, this is happening. And if more of my generation steps up, then they're gonna listen, because how many more letters, songs will I have to write in order to get you guys to hear the message I am trying to say? And that is where I'll end. Sizos Maasi.
Sizos Maasi Page, thank you so much for your presentation. And always nice to see the younger generation sort of taking up issues that are critical to our island and to the world. And so I want to invite next Muñeca de Oro from Micronesian Climate Change Alliance. Put fabot Muñeca hutungan na dzadzasao lo put fabot ang listuhaw.
This is Mossy. Thank you to everybody here for all the amazing heart work that you do. If everyone could just take a moment to hold their heart after hearing all that's being done to our lands and to our waters, and which Nate shared, I definitely think we need just a moment to ground ourselves in love and in remembrance of the beauty that exists and what we need to be protecting, that Prutehi Litekyan does so strongly, and all the people here who do the work with Fanohge Coalition are so committed to in protecting the sacred and protecting. I have a nenny right here. I don't know, my camera keeps going in and out, but I have a 10-month-old child. His name is Carlo, and we could just take a moment for ourselves and for the future generation to just be grounded in the beauty that is this home and our commitment as leaders and potential legislatures to really do the work to protect the future generations and to protect the health and balance and well-being of our islands and of our world. Thank you so much, everybody. My name is Muñeca de Oro. I am with the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. I'm going to go ahead and, if I can share my screen. Micronesia Climate Change Alliance was founded in 2018 after Typhoon Yutu made devastating landfall to our sister islands in Tinian and Saipan. And we've done so much since our founding at the end of 2018. We have really championed things around energy democracy and ensuring that our energy systems benefit all of us and not just a few, and that our energy systems are not reliant on fossil fuels, and that if we do transition to renewable energy, that we do it in a way that's equitable. And really, we're not seeing that on our island today. We're seeing really high prices of our electric bills, and we're seeing the destruction again of these industries from what happened at Marble Cave with the solar farms. We have so many rooftops that could really benefit and are safer and secure ways of having solar energy, as we've seen from our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico after Typhoon Maria. Solar farms are just not sustainable. It's a really big investment that's really really risky, because having winds, especially right where the solar farm is in the Sussegan Valley, right on the beach, it really is a vulnerable place to be placing millions of dollars in investment. And we also saw that it led to the destruction of an important water source, of an important ancestral site at Marble Cave. And it was just devastating for us to see that. And we've been very vocal on holding the Commission on Consolidated Utilities accountable, and really wanting to see more transparency and see more young people and more women in that space on the CCU. And so energy democracy is going to be huge for us. It's really going to be a big part of how we move forward as an organization, and really wanting to see as we move and we have opportunities from the Inflation Reduction Act and what's been championed as a climate change infrastructure bill and more investments into renewable. We really want to make sure that it's done in a way that's just, that's done in a way that benefits a lot more people. And it doesn't just make those who are rich wealthier, and isn't reliant on false solutions as well to the climate crisis. Other work that we do is build regional resilience and cohesion, storytelling. We've had programs in which we have mentored and build skills of young storytellers and help inform them on the work that's being done to protect our lands, and the work by so many people here. We are a part of a lot of international spaces. We're members of Climate Justice Alliance and Global Grassroots Justice and the Indigenous Environmental Network. I'm also a fellow with Indian Collective, and these are really powerful Indigenous-led, people of color-led, Black-led, queer-led spaces that are really speaking from the most vulnerable frontline communities to build and transition to ways of being that's less extractive and less oppressive and a lot more regenerative. We've had work with waste reduction, food security, women and youth empowerment. And of course, why we're here at Fanohge Coalition is because we believe that Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous wisdom, and Indigenous sovereignty are major solutions to the climate crisis. Our ancestors have been thriving and surviving in these harsh conditions out here in the Pacific for thousands of years. And whatever they've been doing, they must have been doing something right, because they've been able to sustain life and grow and build beautiful things like our Lati stones and our beautiful cultures that really were in balance and had a sense of reverence to Mother Earth and to each other. And we're real intentional about being in right relationships and in balance and in harmony with nature. And we have so many Chamorro values that inform that way of being. And that's so much a part of how we need to be moving forward and what we need to be doing as leaders. And I really implore you as candidates and hopefully senators and Congress people and all the spaces that you're trying to take space and represent our people for, to look more about the climate crisis, because it is really something that we need, that unifies our entire world, and that we need a lot more champions of, and policymakers who are really making this issue take center space, because it is the challenge of our time, and there's so much work being done around the world. MCCA has also been very lucky to send representatives to the COP, I went to Madrid, and we had Representative Sheila Babauta from Saipan go to Glasgow last year, and now we're also expanding where many of us who are Chamorros, about 6 or 7 of us, are going to be at Egypt in a few weeks in November to represent us as frontline communities, as communities who are heavily impacted by militarism and by ongoing colonial violence in these spaces. Because one thing that we recognize at the UN space with all the COPs and with the climate protocols is that militaries are not held accountable to reduce their consumption of fossil fuels, and that militaries don't even have to report what their emissions are. And that's a major oversight, considering that the US military is the #1 consumer of fossil fuels. It's the protector of the fossil fuel system, and it's the #1 polluter in the world. And that's a major oversight in our international community for not holding the war industry and those who profit off the war industry and enforce it and perpetuate it aren't being held accountable within the protocols today. And so we just want to remind people too that climate justice work is really international. There's people doing this work around the world. There's legislators who are being elected specifically because they're appealing to young voters, specifically because they're really wanting to do something about the climate crisis. And we really hope to hear more people speaking to this. Another thing that we really hope to do is ground people, and we're doing a training right now here and collecting people from both the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas and here today and tomorrow to be grounded in the just transition framework. And we'd love to talk to you more about this and more in depth and build relationships around this framework, which is being deployed all over the world. And we're excited to share this beautiful way of righting historical wrongs and building a new future collectively. And I wanted to just end by saying one of the big policies too that we hope to see, that we hope to see in the near future is having cooperatives for Guam that are for profit, and having spaces for our businesses to be more collective and to have more democratic processes and have structures that are very akin to worker-owned cooperatives in the States. We see this a lot in the cannabis industry. And so now that cannabis is legal here, we'd really like to see someone introduce for-profit cooperatives and more collective governance in our business community. There's a lot of ways that can help redistribute wealth. And there's a lot of ways in which cooperatives can really be beneficial in helping small businesses unite and leverage their resources together. Sizos Ma'asi for your time. Good luck to you all. Please reach out to Micronesia Climate Change Alliance if there's anything that you'd like to discuss further.
Sizos Ma'asi Manyaka. And I'm excited to hear about what's going on with the training that you've been having at the Guam Museum. And so next, I would like to invite up Seska Kabuhat, who will be speaking on behalf of Famalao'an rights. So was recently, she visited recently another non-self-governing territory, another territory of the United States, American Samoa, for work recently. And so later I'm hoping to hear more about what it's like in our fellow territory / colony. So Seska, whenever you're ready, put for what.
Yes, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Seska Kabuhat. I'm a settler here, happy to support Fanohge Coalition. And I'm here as a volunteer Famalao'an Rights. It is a Guahan's youth and Famalao'an-led reproductive justice initiative focused on addressing the need for accessible reproductive healthcare and education. So 2 of our four goals is, especially at this time, build momentum in our movement by establishing partnerships and other reproductive rights campaigns and organizations. And another great and huge goal that we have is establish a healthcare center or clinic that delivers comprehensive reproductive health care, right? That's not just abortions, that's birth control, that's contraceptions, the STD testing and treatment, and patient education, right? And what does reproductive justice have to do with decolonization? And the work that Fanohge Coalition is doing is that this kind of work, reproductive justice work, is indigenous, people of color, and trans people have always fought for reproductive justice. This term was coined by a Black women-led organization called Sister Song. And we believe that reproductive justice is not just about access, right? So you can have the right to reproductive health care, but it's also, it's not just about choice. It's not just about choice, but it's about access. So it could be, abortion could be legal, and it could be something that can be an individual choice. And that's something that the mainstream movement has focused on, but that's necessary, but it's not enough, right? Even when abortion is legal, many pregnant people of color cannot afford it or cannot travel hundreds of miles, or in this case, thousands of miles away to pay $2,000 to the nearest clinic in Hawaii. So there's no choice where there is no access. So that's something we're striving for. And also reproductive justice is not just about abortion. So abortion access is critical and for pregnant people of color and marginalized genders, but they also have difficulty accessing contraception, comprehensive sex education, STI preventive, alternative birth options, right? And other things like domestic violence assistance, or even adequate wages to support our families and live in safe environments. So reproductive justice is decolonization work, and it is rematriating our values. And what Famalao'an Rights has been working on with Guam People for Choice is the opposition to Bill 291, AKA the Heartbeat Bill, which is a copycat bill to ban abortion at 6 weeks of pregnancy before many people even know that they're pregnant. So regardless of what a person's needs are, right? There's no what's it called? There's no exceptions, right? But also at the same time, like if you need an abortion, you should be able to access it, regardless of what happened to you or how you got pregnant. So yeah, before the bill's public hearing on May 5th, we hosted 2 protests in front of the legislative building, and we also mobilized over 800 people to oppose the bill. And while only 200 people spoke in support of 291. So since then, we've been doing outreach in schools for sex education teach-ins, and also providing voter guides during this election for candidates that align with Famalao'an Rights' goals. Thank you.
Hey, Sidus Masi. And thank you. I always appreciate reminders, because that sort of because for some people the issue of abortion, they feel that if you are pro-Chamorro or pro-Indigenous, then you must be on one side of it. And I appreciate Famalao'an Rights reminding us that there's much more nuance to it, and that if we go deeper into our cultures, we often find something which is more empowering than restricting. And so, Sidus Masi, I want to invite now Lasia Casil, who is speaking on behalf of Save Southern Guam. Por favor, Lasia, if you're ready.
Half a day, and thank you, Maget, for hosting this forum, and thank you to all of the candidates for joining us today to learn about all of our different organizations. Guahusi Lasia Casil, I am the chair of Save Southern Guam. SSG Inc. is a grassroots movement advocating for the protection of the seashore, of all the seashore of Guam and the coastal beauty of Southern Guam. We further advocate for the responsible development along the seashore and coastal areas in accordance with Guam Code Annotated Title 21, Real Property, also Chapter 61, the Zoning Law, Chapter 63, which encompasses the Guam Territorial Seashore Protection Act of 1974, and Title 64, which includes the territory and beach areas, and 65, which includes public access to the ocean shore. We believe that the seashore is a distinct and valuable natural resource belonging to all the people of Guam, and it's existing as a delicately balanced ecosystem that needs permanent protection of the natural, scenic, and historical resources. It's a paramount concern to the present and future residents of this and that in order to promote the public safety, health, and welfare and protect public and private property, wildlife, it's necessary to preserve all of this ecological balance of the seashore reserve and prevent its deterioration and destruction. SSG for short, we are not anti-development. We support responsible development that takes into consideration the culture of our island, our people, protecting its natural resources, preserving and promoting our history and heritage. Just as many of the organizations here hold the military responsible, we also need to hold the private sector responsible for not harming our island. We were founded in 2016. The catalyst for this was when a development in Hagåtña was just announced on the front page of the PDN. None of the residents knew what was going on. It had never heard of this. It was two luxury 15-story buildings, high-end, in Agate near Pagachao. And the mayor didn't know about it. The people in the neighborhood didn't know about it. No one knew about it. Never visited that were based in the Caribbean, but were advertising to only in China to investors to purchase high-end luxury apartments in Agate, which if you're familiar with Agate, it seemed very, very out of place. And so there was another development that came over, which was in Pago Bay, which we started to approach as well. This was the 2 towers, also, I believe 15 stories. Hello? Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're okay. I'll look up.
Okay, sorry. And so we formed a nonprofit and we sued the developer and the Guam Land Use Commission for allowing the variance in this area, for allowing the developer to extend over and over and over again, even though there were many red flags that this was an irresponsible development. And with the assistance of our attorney and indigenous advocate, Leaving Camacho, we won our case and had the permit for that development pulled. This led to the introduction also during that time of Public Law 33-145, which is the Southern Development Master Plan being passed, which required that a plan be developed to include the residents, their input on what happens in Southern Guam. This also led to the Guam Hybrid Commission law being passed, which engaged more of the community about what goes on in their villages. And this would require that in certain projects, I believe it's over $2 million and above, that there would be 4 more members added to the Guam Land Use Commission. It would be the mayors of the adjacent villages, and then 2 members of the Municipal Planning Council from that village to vote on whether or not projects could be allowed in their village. One of the current things that we're facing right now, just a few months ago, is the Vista Del Mar Project, which is a mega resort that has never been, nothing like this has ever been done here on Guam. And this mega resort would greatly impact the Two Lovers Point area in Upper Tumon. It's a mega resort that includes a water park, 5 huge hotel resort type buildings, multifamily and single family residential developments, multi-million-dollar developments for sale. They were asking for variances for several of the buildings to build from 13 stories to 26 stories. And this would have a huge impact on the environment in that area. Some of the things that issues that were how close this project was to the coastline. You know, it's just a little over 300 feet to the reef crest. And in this area, there had been tidal waves or typhoon waves recorded as high as 24 feet, which would have impacted the project. Coastal erosion, all of the concrete and how that would affect the watershed, the degradation of the watershed, the destruction of the limestone forests, eradication of the Marianas fruit bat, which was found in this area, the loss of traditional fishing in this area. There's no infrastructure for this huge project. The air pollution and how it would impact the housing market, as the projects that are being proposed are not for our local people. They're multi-million-dollar homes and apartments that would be in the thousands to rent. Looking at this project and the impact that COVID has had over the past couple of years, we see that there's a shift in tourism, and it brings up the question, do we really need these type of mega resorts here? You know, we saw how our whole economy was affected when tourism was taken away, and we have all these empty hotels. Do we need a mega resort that's going to be empty? It would also impact our sacred Chamorro land and legends. We would lose more access to our shorelines. There were a lot of issues that were brought up by Department of Parks and Rec. Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're looking at, is really looking at projects along the seashore and how it impacts our culture and our community. And this also brought up that there's an advantage that developers have because of a lack of master planning in Tumon. And the zoning laws and land policies have not been reviewed since the 1980s and 1990s. And there has been a shift in of the community's needs, what we want, our values, our reconnection to our culture, our awareness, our advocacy. And we need legislators that are going to look at this and help us plan for a future. Otherwise, we're going to have hodgepodge development. We're going to have carpetbaggers come to our island and just try to maximize their profits, take our land, and leave. Or have these developments where all the money is being funneled outside of Guam. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, is really looking at planning for these type of areas. We do have a Facebook page, Save Southern Guam. During the community hearings for the Vista Del Mar Project, we did put out a change.org. We had 2,748 people sign that they were against this project. And yet the Guam Land Use Commission still granted them a permit for proposed development to start doing some of the redevelopment. And policies haven't challenged. There are a lot of things been reviewed in many, many years, even though all of our needs and wants and requirements have changed. So we hope that all of you learn from all of our different groups today. Thank you so much for coming. I'm available for questions. I'll put my email and my phone number on the side if we don't have time here. I hope I touched on everything, but I want to give time to some of the others to speak and for you guys to speak. So Sidus Masi, and yes, thank you.
Sidus Masi Lasia, thank you so much for that. And again, Sidus Masi, you in line with what others have discussed so far, the need to decolonize our thinking. We are an island in the Pacific. We need to not imagine that our resources are endless, our land is endless. And so an important reminder of the need to take seriously planning and development on our island. And so before we get to the last group, I did want to acknowledge Roy Quinata, who joined us, Sidus Masi Roy, for attending. And so the last group is actually me and then Mr. Vic Paulino. We will be representing the Young Men's League of Guam. And so Sidus Masi no hamzu todos, parifinaton medyo pogo inanhu si Michael Lujan Bavakwa, Zan membro Zunagi Inenon Lalahin Guahan, or the Young Men's League of Guam. And so giesti na champon pogo fihu man malelefa itautaw nai na guaha dos na ifishat nai na lengguahi para estinatano. Zan unuha na tautaw ni man natibo para estinatano. Este na lengguahe ni huusa pago esti finot Chamoru. Este I mismo na lengguahe estinatano, I mismo lengguahe I Taitague. Za gua masasangan nai na ti importante este na lengguahe. Tibali este. Lo tiu confort mi now. Hagagas este na lengguahe este finota guini gesti na tono. Taiguhi loqui nai na hagagas I Taitague loqui. Hungen. Za angin hita un tautau. Za para tasongan nai na este I ren shata ginin iman yaina. Este I guanaguanta I tresoro ni cultura I tenautau. Angin para tasongan nai na tibali importante este sia pues hafa eno sumasangan nai put hadzi hit. Hafna class in tautau hit. Hafna class in comunidad I Taitague. Angin tima Prutehi, tima nafafamta esti siha I mismo guanahaniha ni sumisedzan esti natano. And so, Senor Vic, is there something that you want to add to as well, coming from the Young Men's League of Guam?
Hunggan dispensat Guam si Vic Paulino, Treasurer Ginini Inet no Lalahin Guahan, Young Men's League of Guam. I'd like to just make a few information that we can add on to with regards to the Inet no Lalahin Guahan. You know, the Young Men's League of Guam, its membership and the organization was established back in 1917, and it was made possible by the permission of the president. Isn't it amazing? We had to go to the president to try to make our organization existence. The membership consists of past judges, legal representatives, pioneers of, and it's a Chamorro fraternity, and judges, current senators, current directors, private business owners, and just individuals who are embracing the mission of the Inet no Lalahin Guahan. The primary mission of the Inet no Lalahin Guahan is to preserve the Chamorro culture and the Ilinguahita, our Chamorro language. And so the organization has evolved from developing and organizing sports and festivities. And they used to actually be one of the main sponsors and hosts of the First Liberation Day festivities. We have evolved. we provide scholarships and certain amounts for various different groups that works towards teaching Chamorro. And the YMLG has participated and sponsored the Chamorro language competition that is organized through the University of Guam and Mark, and the GDOE Chamorro Mes Chamorro competitions. Recently, the Young Men's League of Guam, through its approval by its board of directors, have financed certain funds that created a library available online right now through the University of Guam Press, as well as Micronesian Area Research Center. It's an online library, whereas they compiled and started to file and made available all these different resources that you've seen the Chamorro language educators have provided or established, and they are available free online. The YMLG was a proponent in sponsoring that and provided funding for it to ensure that that is going to be available for any Chamorro teachers, be it in the private or public education system, or anybody who just wants to learn the Chamorro language. Currently, we have some other projects, and that we will work together with the various different agencies and our lawmakers, as well as the executive branch with the NAFTAN Bainanata. And that's a project that basically we want to ensure that we see through. It's taken 10 years to try to get it to where it's at, and we need to push that through, is basically to reintern and bury the remains of our ancestors. And those remains are currently in storage, and we need to put them to rest. And I'm very moved by our first presenter, to everyone who's presented today. The first presenter, I didn't share this, I'm going to share this, but my grandfather and his brother were both killed up in the development sites. We are the family of Jesus Borja Taitingfong, and so he is buried up there. And so you know, it is touching. So that's pretty much, we currently have a lot of activities going. Our YMLG building in Mighty is going to have a new tenant. It's going to be a coffee shop. Had to put that plug in there. I also applaud our current candidates for senators, for our legislative lawmaking body, to thank you for taking the opportunity to run, but also embrace our past, learn from our past. Let's also learn from our mistakes and avoid the mistakes that our past has, you know, that we've made in our past. And let's move Guam forward. Let's move the Chamorro people forward, and let's correct all the injustices. And the Inanalahin Guam has been with the Fanohge Coalition. We stood there in our march to have progress and have our next generation pass the torch to them and keep this moving. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, Vic. And I wanted to give the candidates that have been so gracious to join us, I wanted to give them a chance now to speak for about 1 to 2 minutes. And so I'm going to go down the sort of the Zoom list, like you are all students in the class, and I'm taking attendance, I guess, dispensadzo. And so if you would like to, feel free. You can show yourself, turn on your camera and share. But so I'm going to ask first Sabina Perez. Senator Perez, por favor, would you like to share about 1 to 2 minutes? Por favor.
Yeah, Hafaday Maget, Hafaday, everyone that presented today. Yeah, I'm very much an ally to all of these causes that were mentioned. And I just want to thank the whole community for their hard work and what they do. You know, it takes many years. As you know, decolonization is a long struggle, has been a long struggle. And I think what we're seeing today is a revitalization of our community coming together, and that's what it's going to take. Like Vic said, you know, we have to move forward as a group. And yeah, my hats to all of you. And you know, I'm always open to creating bills to help support or legislation or policies, as you know, to help with the cause. And so yes, I just want to thank everybody. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, Senadora. And then Vince Borja, I would like to invite you now, if you would like to speak for about 1 to 2 minutes, share your thoughts, share some of your platform.
Today, my name is Vince Borja. I'm a candidate for the legislature. First, thank you to the Fanohge Coalition for hosting this forum. Like most of you, I am a son of Guam. I care a lot about Guam and the direction it's going. I support decolonization. I believe that our people deserve to be heard and should have been, you know, deserve the opportunity to decide the future of Guam. And again, I'm just really humbled to be here and to be here to learn from those that are passionate in the different areas and how it's important for our future, especially for our children, in regards to really just the resources and everything that is important to Guam and to those who call Guam home. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Sidus Masi, Sidus Masi. Senator Kelly, would you like to go next? Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano, put for about 1 to 2 minutes.
Sure. Half a day. So my name is Kelly Marsh-Taitano, and I'm a daughter of Guam. I've been here since the 60s, and I've raised my family here, and I have grandchildren who are growing up here as well. So I'm very committed to the island. I love it. It's the only home I've known. And I just want to say as well that Guam is fortunate to have so many of its community members committed to fighting for a better future for all of us, as we've seen here. And so Sidus Ma'asi to all of the presenters. And I learned a lot, even though I've studied this for these kinds of issues and Guam history, our region, the culture, the society, the dynamics for decades, there's always more to learn. And so everyone here is really contributing to helping meet those challenges that were discussed today. And they are so important to discuss and have all of us be talking about, because they are at the root of so many of the issues that we as a community want to resolve. And so the more that we realize that, the more that we're cognizant of these issues, the more that we can get to actually tackling them and resolving them. So just a little bit about my platform. We need leaders, and I believe that I've done this in the past, that will fight for our future. We have to look at the local government, which we talk about a lot locally, but it's also making sure that we don't close the other eye, and that's the federal government. We have to keep both accountable to make our community safer and better and more sustainable for all of us. So with sustainability, with safety in all its forms, from our children to our vulnerable, to all of us in many ways, and that speaking truth to power. Like I said, I look at the local government, but also the federal government. We're out here and they have developed those federal laws for a reason. The National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Protection Act, those Historic Preservation Act, those are put here to create that safety for us and to make that better future for us. So I'm sure I've gone over my time, but again, thank you all. And I want to continue fighting for you all in the legislature again.
Sidus Masi, Senator Kelly. And Roy Quinata, put for board, would you like to share?
Buenas and hafere todos hamdu se jus masi para tempon mizu para este programa o keke faisten todos hamdu para supporten mizu dan e zoku nambaku gi democrato na banda número 4 o faisten todos hamdu pon bota ju sa guahu e tandan gi democrato na banda goi mas hoben na lahi dan candidato pon falago o malaguzo by falago sa gof importanti culturata o gof importanti e lena lata gof importanti e tanota o praktika dan o fafaisen e tautauta pona angin pun sangani ini fresi tolgui i ini fresi munga pun sangani ha i tautau gi video na Prutehi esti o you just need to be who you are. I mean, I'm asking each and every one of you, I asked it in Chamorro for you to consider me. I am the youngest candidate running for office. I'm asking each and every one of you to look at each and every one of us candidates running for office. If we are really worthy of your time, worthy of your vote, and whether we are really real with what we want to do. We have people who just say the Inifresi because it's scripted. We have people who are always saying that they believe in our people, but are always going to the other side. So just stop saying the Inifresi and not protecting our people. Our lands, our people, our culture, our language is very much important. I'm thankful for the opportunity here again. Thankful for each and every one of you's advocacy and all your contributions to our island. I've stepped up to serve the island to help build a better foundation for the next generation, and I'm hopeful to serve you, the people of Guam. If there's anything you would like to discuss with me, my website is royforguam.com. All my punchlines for social media is Roy for Guam. My number is 685-6969. If there's anything you want to discuss, please reach out to me, and let's work together to make Guam better. And like my slogan is, making a difference begins with you. So let's build Guam back better. Have a great evening. Thank you again.
Si Diyos masi Roy, si Diyos masi dyan biba finot Chamorro who agradeci na ina unuusay finota. And
si Diyos masi Telo. Adios.
And so Bistra Mendiola, I would like to invite you now if you'd like to share. Put for what?
Hafade, good evening. Thank you for hosting this event. I appreciated the presentations very much. It was very unique way of presenting the different topics. I just want to share that although it seems that I don't have much in common with the local people, actually I do. The quest for freedom is ingrained in my DNA. Why? I was born and raised in Bulgaria. Bulgaria is the only country in the European continent that didn't change its name since its founding in 681 AD. We're still called Bulgaria to this day. We were under the Byzantine Empire. We were under the Ottoman sword. We were under the communist rule until 1945. Until 1989. So in essence, this presentation on self-determination resonates with me, and I do understand and I do appreciate the sentiments of the Chamorro people, because freedom is a God-given right in my mind, and it has to be protected, it has to be fought for. What I can do in the next legislature, I have to learn a lot more about the options, because no matter how much I've been trying to find information regarding, okay, let's change our status, what's next? To me, that information needs to be presented more clearly, because the people so far, they only pretty much know the option, number 1, number 2, number 3. I learned through Mr. Ron Ninch. I actually attended one of his seminars, that there is also an option number 4, which he called make your own deal. So I believe that Guam is in a very unique position to fight for the best deal it can get. Many of our problems today cannot be resolved through local legislation because they're on federal level and we have absolutely no say. And that is quite detrimental not only to our environment, to our social status as people here, our treatment on federal level as second-class citizens, which is highly offensive to everyone here, I'm absolutely certain. So in essence, what we need to do is really educate each and every single person that will be eligible to vote on decolonization. I might not be one of them because obviously I wasn't naturalized in the 50s. My husband will be, my kids will be, but I support that effort to move Guam forward. And I hope to learn even more in the future. Thank you so much for all of you, all of your wonderful presentations.
Sidus Masi Bistra, and thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your history, and then bringing connections, creating connections between the histories. Sidus Masi. And so Senator Telo Taitague, put favor nihita sangani si Telo. Let us all give Telo a chance now. Put favor, you will be the last one to share, and then we will bring it back to Josephine to close. Sidus Masi, Senora.
I don't want to be between your dinner and the last person speaks so I can go run to eat somewhere, so I'll make it very short. I was really excited when I found out about this meeting tonight, the forum to talk about Decolonization 101 and how far we've gotten. Though I do greatly appreciate hearing all the other groups that came before us to talk about their associations and what they're doing. But I really appreciate Melvin Pat-Borja, the director on Commission on Decolonization, what he brought to the table today. And Ginamona, the documentation, I was able to quickly get on the website and read that, and I highly recommend everybody. I mean, it's 785 pages. But it was done with love, it was done with a balance, and it was totally done with this perspective of all three, from statehood to independence to free association. And I totally agree that we should not be the status quo. I've been one, and I will say it now, that I'm for independence. And I think that if we can get more people involved and educated to understand the difference between all of them and what's in our best interest, not just today, but I'm talking about the future. Our future is so important as we look at this. But thank you so much, Mel, for all this hard work. The part 1, part 2, very interesting stuff. And I highly recommend everybody go to that website on decolonization to read that. But I've been one to advocate for our culture and not to forget the people we are and our land. So I've been doing that by changing some of the village names. So please call, not Agate, Hoggett, not Umatic, Humatek, Tatlafofo, Sumai, Santa Rita Sumai. We've changed these Inalahan from Inarahan. So please, let's continue to keep our culture alive. It's all we have. Sidus Masi, Donkulu Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, Senadora, thank you so much for that. I do want to thank all of the candidates who participated today, who joined us. Some of them did have to leave, but I do want to acknowledge all of them again. Sidus Masi to Senator Sabina Perez, Senator Telo Taitague, Senator James Moylan was here, but he did have to leave. Former Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano, Bistra Mendiola, Vince Borja, Angela Santos, Fred Bordallo Jr., and Roy Quinata. And I believe that Fred Bordallo said that he is at a fundraiser, and so he's not able to talk, but he is here. And Sidus Masi Senyor, puri finatomulokwi na une ekungok. All right, Josephine, put favor, if you will close us off for the evening.
Sujus Masis and Salamat everybody for coming today. And thank you all to all the organizations for talking about your work and not just presenting the historical injustices that Chamorros have faced in Guam, but also what is being done in the present that not many people know about, and what can be done in the future to help resolve these injustices. Now everybody's got a busy evening, so we're just gonna close. But thank you everybody for coming. And please feel free to stay in contact with the Fanohge Coalition. Our email is fanohgecoalition@gmail.com. It's pretty straightforward. We also have our Facebook group that you can easily contact. And if you need to reach any of the groups, you can talk to the Fanohge Coalitions. Reach out to Fanohge Coalition or those groups' Facebook pages. And if the groups want to drop their contact emails on the chat, please do so for the senatorial candidates to contact you. But yeah, so just want to say thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, and be on the lookout for our next event, which will be our meet and greet with the CNMI gubernatorial candidates. Miguel, what time would that be again? I'm losing track of all the events, everyone.
Oh, I know. Joni put for what? Kia ora now. Joni, what time do we start the meeting with the Sablan Staffler team?
Oh, yes, that will be at 6 o'clock on Monday, September 26th.
Okay. And it will be live streamed on Facebook for those who want to tune in. But hunggan, sidus masi. Adios, todos samsu. Adios, este kiman at lihit talo.
Viva Fanohge.
Adios.